The coronavirus has interrupted the education of millions of kids around the world, but it doesn't have to. There's never been a better time to use online resources to teach your students effectively. I'm going to show you 5 different ways you can teach online so that you and your students don't fall behind. Number 1 is to simplify this process. A lot of people are overwhelmed by all the options and all the equipment. Keep it very simple. So let's talk about equipment, for example. If you have a laptop, you have enough equipment already. You don't need to buy fancy lights. You can use the sun. You can use a lamp. Make sure that that light is facing you directly rather than coming from behind, and that's good enough. Use the microphone in your computer. If you're getting a little bit of audio feedback, maybe put on a pair of headphones. You probably have all of this stuff in your house already, and you don't need to buy equipment from the internet. Another thing to keep in mind is that there are so many options online, it can be overwhelming. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed. Think about the 1 or 2 things that you need. If you have to create a direct communication channel with your students, like a messaging platform or email, use that and keep it simple. If you have one video conferencing platform, like a Zoom or Big Marker or Skype, use that and keep it simple. Another way to simplify the process is if you teach in one school day 4 sections of the same class, why not have all 4 of those sections meet together every day live online rather than repeating yourself 4 times online? It's one of the advantages of online learning when you think about it is you can put 80 people into an online room more easily than you can put them into a physical classroom. So the big picture here is keep this simple. It doesn't have to be as complicated as you think. You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need 15 different programs you're using, and you don't need to repeat yourself multiple times in one day. Number 2, respect the medium. Here's what I mean by this. Online education is just different from in-person education. You can't necessarily transfer what you do in your classroom to an online platform. So if you run science labs, you're not going to be able to physically have people in a laboratory in a lab coat with pipettes. You need to think of a new way of doing online labs. So using online resources that already are structured labs, having students study scientific research, or even watch videos based on what's going on inside of laboratories. You have to work with the medium, you have to respect it. If you run discussions in a literature course, you need to think about maybe using an online discussion board where students type their answers and their responses to each other instead of trying to have 30 people talk over each other on their microphones online. If you run a foreign language class and you have students do oral presentations, maybe they could record those as audio files and send them to you. It's a way of doing the same skill, assessing the same skill, the same learning, but in a different medium. Pay attention to the limitations and the advantages of online media, and you'll be successful. Number 3 is you need to be open-minded. Online education presents challenges and opportunities that may mean you have to change your learning objectives. Maybe you run a math class and you're expected to do some SAT math prep throughout the year. Maybe you haven't gotten to it yet. What about taking this 2 to 4 week window in front of you and using that for intensive SAT prep? Maybe you teach literature instead of the book that you were hoping to teach, which is going to be awkward to try to teach online. What about talking about a Shakespeare play and then using film adaptations of that play to have vibrant discussions and new paper assignments? This is a way of using the 2 to 4 week window to maybe achieve different goals from the ones you have on your plan for the year, but that's something that's still valuable for your students. If you're open-minded in this way, I think you can find a lot of success with online teaching. Number 4, and this is critical, is that communication is key. You have to have one single path for communicating with your students so that you're all on the same page. Now, if you teach in a conventional school building most of the day, like I do, you can walk by and see your students in the hallway. You can see them before or after class. You can put announcements on the board. You can't do that here. Where is your whiteboard? Where is your online space? Maybe you have all of your class content in one Google Doc. Maybe you use WhatsApp and you create a group thread where everyone can communicate with one another. You have to follow the policies of your school about interacting online with students, but if you have one centralized location, one email list, whatever it is, you can unify the conversation so the kids aren't confused about what assignment is due or when they have to meet. Now, this might be awkward for you. I'm not used to running a group text thread with my students, but remember your students are doing this all the time. They're communicating on all these different platforms and social media accounts. So if you just find one channel, it'll be very natural for your students to jump onto that channel and speak with you. Number 5, and this is the most important, is that you need to use interaction. The burden of this whole problem is not on your shoulders. You don't have to lecture online for 6 hours a day. Make your students produce the content that gets you through the day. Make sure that you're asking them questions throughout a live online session so it's not you talking at them for 40 minutes. Make sure, for example, that if your online chat platform, let's say you're using Crowdcast or Skype, if there's a chat feature there, have the students interact, answer questions, answer polls, solve problems together, have them do short presentations of 2 to 3 minutes in front of the class rather than you have to do all of the work. This is really key. Learning online passively for 5 or 6 hours a day is a terrible way to learn. Learning online with tons of interaction, with group work. Let's say you have your students all inside of a Google Doc editing an essay together or building a research project together. Let's say your students watch a video and then maybe they're all watching a movie at the same time. Let's say that's the Kenneth Branagh's version of Hamlet from the 1990s. You can have a live chat going among the students where they're interacting with each other live, watching the movie at the same time. Whatever it is, make sure that the students are producing content, audio files, video files, text, papers, whatever medium you can think of that takes the burden off of you and makes this process more fun and engaging for them. At Marco Learning, we help teachers, and we're going to be putting out tons of new videos about online resources, how to run discussions online, how to grade online. If you subscribe to our channel and turn on that notification bell, you can get that content. We're going to help you get through this crisis.